Hey,
What's
Jared.
up, Jim? Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. Doing good. Uh, good to see you on a Sunday.
Yeah,
This is
yeah, different
rare. Yeah,
days.
right. But we've got a special episode today. I think I know we say it almost every time, but this one is new. We're gonna do our first TV show. We're gonna indulge the conspiracy theory world, maybe for the first
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Uh,
Great Dangerous TV
though
episode.
actually, in our Great Dangerous TV episode, though actually our Baudrillard episode a Bob episode would be that was pretty conspiracy too, right?
True.
But
Yeah.
um, well, actually, I think you're going to see there's some symmetries between those two things too. So, but hey, as always, what are you reading this week, Jared?
So this week, for class, we did some Marcus Cicero, a couple of his speeches. And then I personally am reading actually a book called How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, which is written by a guy named
Nice.
Donald Robertson, who is a cognitive behavioral therapist. So he's kind of coming at Stoicism from a different perspective, which I appreciate. So it's pretty good so far.
Nice, nice.
How about you?
So I am reading uh Heidegger's lecture course on Hegel's phenomenology of spirit,
Nice.
which, man, I have to say is one of the most profound things I've ever read. Right?
Really?
Like
Wow.
yeah, it's an incredibly interesting reading of Hegel. I mean, it's everything you kind of expect Heidegger to do with it. And Heidegger's lecture courses on thinkers, many people will say, have precious little to do with the people that he's supposedly talking about. Um, but I don't know. This one, I think there's some things about Hegel I'm already understanding better having read, or maybe differently, having read Heidegger. And recently, a guy named Robert Pippin, a long time, like kind of one of the deans of scholarship on Hegel in English speaking world, has come out with a book sort of defending Heidegger's read of Hegel, which has been a bit of a scandal in those
Interesting.
circles. Yeah. And so I'm doing this partly because I'm teaching the phenomenology of spirit next semester, though Heidegger's book only complicates that for me. Uh, and, and two, because I wanted to read this before I looked at Pippin's take on Heidegger's take on Hegel, right? So, yeah, so I'm reading that. And I'm reading another book, which I think I mentioned to you off the air. It's called Aberration in the Heartland of the Real
Yeah. Yeah.
by Wendy Painting, who's a sociologist who studies narrative and myth. And it is a, count 'em, 1,500 page, uh, like, cultural political study of Tim McVeigh and the narrative surrounding the Oklahoma City bombing, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, and what Painting does is she lays out these sort of 5 archetypes of Tim McVeigh, like 5 narratives about who Tim McVeigh was and what his role was in the bombing. And then I think I haven't finished the book yet. I'm only like, it's funny. I'm like 300 pages in, and I'm not. I'm barely getting it right. But where she's going, I think, is she's going to say is it's absolutely inscrutable as to which one of these narratives is the right one. Okay, and because, for instance, it's very clear that at one point or another between 1995 and when he was executed, I think it was in 2001, they happily played each of these roles.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I don't know if this is where she's going to go with it, but it seems to me what she's doing for us is she's showing us that Tim McVeigh's relationship to the event itself was mediated through these narratives. So
Wow.
he has now no direct access to it. Right. And there's all these very strange things about how, like, immediately he's trying to play what she calls the lone wolf, which is a very hard story to maintain, to the point though that he even like convinced his own sister to be a witness for the prosecution. Right.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. Didn't yeah. And so she's not, I don't think, trying to vindicate any one narrative or like come out for some conspiracy, but to show that like the epistemic waters for us now are so fraught that we can't get to the bottom of this.
That's insane. Wow.
Yeah. I think in a way she's saying, like Baudrillard, um, the Oklahoma City bombing did not occur.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Even to
And so
Timothy
it's a
McVeigh
fact.
himself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It didn't occur even for Tim McVeigh. Right. And that's not to say he didn't do something that day, but like what it was in the important sense, now that these narratives are all available and the knower is unknown to himself, right? As friend of the show, Frederick Nietzsche has said, right? There's no unmediated access to this event now. It's always going to be framed through how Tim McVeigh imagines himself through the symbolic structure that's available.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah, but and I do think this is going to actually carry over to what we're going to talk about today.
For
So
sure. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
totally, totally. Anyway, so at some point, maybe after I finish the book, we'll do an episode on Painting's tech, and maybe we'll see if we can get her to come on the show. Though
Nice.
though she seems rather reclusive. Like you don't see many podcasts with her and stuff. So, but can you blame her? Right. But
Yeah.
'cause I'm sure her inbox is full of weird stuff.
For sure. Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. So what are we doing today, Jared?
So today, as we said, we're going to do a great dangerous TV episode, and we've actually mentioned this show a couple times on this show, our show, called Mindhunters, which is currently on Netflix. There are 2 seasons. There's been a lot of talk about a third season because there are a lot of like plots that just don't finish, and you really wish you could get some closure on it. But whoever made that show is absolutely brilliant and clearly
Right.
understands a lot of what we're talking about, in this
Yeah.
show. So
The show is absolutely brilliant. I I hope they give us a third season because then like there's another reason. There's a reason for me to continue on in existence. Okay. Right. Um, but I hope also it brings no closure because I think the lack of closure is part of the point
of the fun,
of the
yeah,
show. Yeah, of the show. But so the show is it's mostly fictionalized. I think. I mean, I think like even like the Bill Tench character is
for sure, yeah,
like a composite fictionalized. I think his family life is utterly fabricated. Is a fictional thing for the show, but it's loosely based on how the FBI's criminal profiling program arm, right, was originally developed in the late 1970s in this sort of team that was put together between a group of FBI agents and a like a social psychologist, right,
hmm hmm
who in the TV show is named Wendy. I forget her last name. The initial FBI agent who's interested in this is a guy named Holden. That's Wendy Carr, and it's Holden. What is Holden's last name? Or is it Holden's first name?
I just remember
Anyway,
Holden.
Holden.
Holden is his
Yeah,
last name, I think, actually.
yeah, and then Bill Tench, who is kind of the old salt FBI agent who comes in and plays
I love
the
that the
grouchy
actor.
father figure.
I love the
Yeah,
actor that played him too, Holt McCallany.
yeah,
He's
excellent. Yeah, and now as far as just the kind of like the show, it's very interesting. Like at this level of um there's a lot of book title checking that goes on in the show, right? Um, but if which at first when I was watching it, I kind of got annoyed by that because it had that kind of like pretentious, we're gonna like mention names of books to like come off, as if there's like a substance here that there isn't. But then as I actually, like paid more attention, I realized the book checking was a signal to what was going on in those episodes. And if you had read the texts, there was a higher level thing going on here, right? And which I found fascinating. So like for instance, there's at one point there's a mention of Freud's theory of perversion in the three essays on sexuality. And man, that gets acted out for you like incredibly in that
yes.
episode. At some point, maybe we'll do that episode, right? There's several mentions of Irving Goffman, who's a
Mhm.
sociologist and who has this view that there is no like unmediated access to an authentic self at this point in human history or in the West at least. And that seems to me to be actually the abiding theme of the TV series.
For
Okay.
sure.
Um, and there's a mention of Freud's Beyond the Pleasure Principle, and if you're watching that episode carefully, it actually makes perfectly good sense that that's the book there. So it's a very literate show.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, and although it may feel pretentious at first, but if you're actually in the know in these, I think there's some stuff going on there that you can follow, right? And moreover, there's well, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but I recommend people watch it. I also recommend if you haven't, hey man, turn this off, go watch. What is it? Season 2, episode 5 is what we're talking
Hmm.
about here,
Yep.
which is the Manson episode. Okay, right. So we're going to talk about Charles Manson, at least as he's represented, and it's an important footnote here, at least how he's represented in this episode of Mindhunters. Now, who is Charles Manson? Where do we start there, Jared? Right.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to say there. I would imagine most of our viewers and listeners probably know the name. I mean, I would imagine that that's probably the reality of it. But we are talking about the man who brought together a group of, is it 6 or 7, I think, young hippies, and basically helped twist them into ultimately murderers, serial killers. This happened in California in 1974. Was that right?
No, it's 69,
Or
70, I
69.
think.
There you go.
Yeah.
A lot of people know about the Helter Skelter term, or Helter Kelter. Um, but yeah, basically a leader of a hippie group that ended up becoming mass murderers. So 7 people.
Yeah. And so the Manson family, which my understanding is not a term they used. Okay, right.
I don't think so.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, we know this, right? This much is admitted, right? Uh, Several of them uh killed Sharon Tate and other house guests at that. Sharon Tate was a young actress who was pregnant. She was married to Roman Polanski, which that's creepy right there. Okay, if you know anything about Roman Polanski.
Yes.
Okay. And then the following night they went to was it the La Bianca family home and killed 2 people there. The family is connected to at least one other murder, right? Okay, all of which have this sort of similar theme that after the murder, it was, references to the pigs were painted on the walls in blood, et cetera, et cetera. Um, it's important to note that Manson himself did not kill anyone, right? The claim is that he directed other people in these killings, right? Okay. Um, okay, now, but right, uh, there's all sorts of things that problematize this now. Okay, so like for a long time, the going like accepted narrative about Manson was based on a book called Helter Skelter because Manson at some point, or at least it's speculated, or he claimed in some sense that he thought, the Beatles were talking to him, right? And the song Helter Skelter was signifying that Charlie and the kids needed to like tip off the final race war,
Hmm.
right? And then go hide in the desert to wait it out. And they called it Helter Skelter. Okay. But the going narrative for a long time was the book written by Vincent Bugliosi, who was the prosecutor in the case, cashed in big time on the big book, right? Best selling true crime book of all times, right? And for a long time, that was the story. Okay. Maybe tell me if we're going too far, but like, there's another book that came out just in like the last 5 years, right? Called Chaos
Yes.
by a guy named Tom O'Neill, right? You've read it, right, Jared? I've read it. Tom O'Neill is a journalist who what was it, at the 30-year anniversary was
I think
tasked
so.
to write a short kind of retrospective on the Manson phenomena from that summer. And he gets into it and he realizes it is far more complicated, right,
Yes.
than it ever had been suggested. Okay. And I mean, for instance, like Manson was like very hooked up with very important people in Hollywood and in the music industry. Close personal friend of, was it Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, right? Like lived with Wilson for a while, moved him and the girls in, for a while. I think they kind of serviced Brian Wilson for for a bit, right? The Mamas and the Papas were all hooked up with Manson.
Yep.
Some big time producers, kids were all like kind of on the cusp of Manson, right? All these sorts of things. Okay. Also, It does seem, and I think this is pretty well documented based on O'Neill's book, that Manson, when he was in San Francisco, was a regular, patron of something called the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, which seems to have been connected to, wait for it, MKUltra. Okay, right? Um, and so, if you don't know what this is, MKUltra this is not controversial, was indeed a CIA research project and maybe some application of a mind control project, right? I mean,
It's public, yeah, public knowledge now.
well, yeah, since the 70s, right? This has been known. Okay. And a guy named Jolly West seemed to have some deep connections and with that clinic. And that clinic is where Manson would hang out. Okay, right. And there's very odd things about how he was like a repeated serious criminal offender, but always did federal time and then was always let out, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some suggestion that Manson may indeed have been an op, right? Whether he knew it or not. I mean, I think like that's the thing now. Okay. And there's also, this is the title of O'Neill's book, Chaos is the name of CIA operation that was being done in the States to discredit the anti-war movement,
Yes.
right? Okay. And to discredit things like the Black Panther Party. At the
Mhm.
same time, the FBI was running an op by the name of COINTELPRO, which had the same goals. Okay. And O'Neill strongly suggests, he can't prove it, strongly suggests that, I mean, what was going on is they were trying to infiltrate far left hippie-ish groups, get them to do absolutely atrocious things so that they could end the anti-war movement, right?
Yep. Yep.
And guess what? Right? Enter Charlie Manson, right? He is like the Manson family. What happened is suddenly like the hippie movement went from being something relatively benign and cool to something dangerous and satanic, right?
Yes.
There you go, right? And in now, so at the very least, what you have is, I think, a non-negligible counter narrative to Bugliosi's, right?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Another one, like there's a great podcast that I really appreciate called Fourth Reich Archaeology. Okay. They are doing a deep dive on Squeaky Fromme, who was a member of the Manson family who attempted to shoot Gerald Ford. Okay.
Yes.
But clearly it seemed like she wasn't really trying to shoot him. Like it was like she had a gun and like was saying, but it wasn't supposed to go off anyway. And like, okay. Okay.
Interesting.
So yeah, okay.
I didn't know
And
about that.
Squeaky
Yeah.
Fromme is actually pronounced her name. Yeah. Um, and anyway, they've done a deep dive in the Manson family, and so they actually see it first and foremost as a for-profit criminal organization.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they see it as like an extension of that kind of like Hell's Angels,
Okay.
uh, like drug scene that was all about like underworld capitalism.
Yes.
Okay, and then and so like so once again, there's a third narrative there, right?
Interesting. So kind of like a murder
Yeah,
for hire type thing?
yeah, or like these were indeed ultimately drug deals going wrong, and there was like revenge, and like Manson did, or like Tex, one of the guys in the group in the gang, did like cap a drug dealer at one
Really?
point.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And okay. And so like if you go like to the Swan Ranch where they were living, this sort of like former Hollywood Western movie set, which is featured in the Tarantino film about this, which I don't like by the way, but anyway. Um, you can see it like there were like Hell's Angels there were hippies there were all sorts of like guys fresh back from Vietnam there. I mean, it's like anything in the stew of the late 60s was there. And so was there intelligence going on? Maybe. Was there, hippie cult crap going on? Maybe, right? Was there organized crime going on? Maybe, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe yes to all of it. And so, like the going narrative has been the hippie cult, right? But it does seem like it seems to be as well evidenced that you may have had organized criminal activity going on. You may have had, like spooky internal ops going on, right?
Crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you can see where I'm going. Is like you've got competing narratives now.
Yes.
Okay. And you and I are in no position, right, to come to
to say which
Nevada.
one it is. Yeah.
Say which one it is. Yeah.
Yeah. What's crazy is the guy that plays Charles
Oh, the real
Manson in
Slim Shady, please stand up. Right. Like, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But the guy that plays Manson in Mindhunters is the same guy that plays Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Tarantino
Really.
film.
I
Eventually,
mean,
yeah.
dude's been typecast, but man,
No,
he's,
looks exactly like him.
he does a good Manson. He really does. Right. Yeah. Okay. So back to Mindhunters. Let's talk about season 2, episode 5. Okay. So the episode begins, am I right, with Bill Tench and his wife Nancy sitting in their kitchen. Okay. And what's happened in the previous episode. So remember, Bill Tench is an FBI agent whose job is to study the behavior and the views of serial killers to predict what they're going to do next so that the FBI can catch them. Okay, so he is the guy tasked with like the point of the spear against mass murder, right?
Mhm.
Against serial murder in America. Okay. And it's also important too, I think, that we're shown their home is just a picture of late or like 1970s American bourgeois middle class, just all American whiteness, right? Like
Yeah.
it is the picture of it,
Like
right?
Leave It to Beaver.
I mean, yeah, Leave It to Beaver. Tench has got the flat top crew cut that he probably got for the first time in Korea and never got rid of, right? Like his
Yeah.
wife is like everything, like there's like all the gadgets, everything. Okay, so it's like they go out of the way to show you they're in a ranch house in a suburb, right? Okay. But what's happened is their adopted son uh has been involved in a murder, and he's like, what is he? He's like 8 years old or something. Like he's like an early grade school kid, and he and his buddies were playing, and some of the other boys strangled to death a toddler in the room. Tench's kid, I forget his name, didn't kill, had nothing to do with the killing, but in the end takes the kid and like hangs him on a cross. Okay. So there's something very odd going on here, right? And he is deeply involved in what becomes a ritualistic killing, right? Okay. And so there's this question then like of why. Okay.
Mhm.
And Tench, um, and his wife both will not see this as something that like uh was the doing of their son, right?
Mhm.
They want to account for it in terms of something else going wrong. Do you see that? Like
Yes.
the influence of the other boys, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All right. Now, also something that we have to have in the backstory before we get in this episode is at one point, I can't remember if it's in this season or the season before, they go out of their way to show us that the son gets into some photographs of crime scene gore that
Intention's
that
office.
in Tench's home office,
His home
right?
office.
Like he's been careless and he's let this slip into his son's life. I think that's important. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, anyone to add at this point, Jared?
No, but yeah, I think it's a good point to say that they're both kind of in denial that something might be wrong with their own son. They think that they do want to help him in some capacity, but they don't think there's a darkness kind of luring underneath in him.
Right.
Which is funny because it's kind of ironic given the fact of what Bill Tench does. He's there to
Yes,
see the
exactly.
signs and to read the kind of tea leaves of what those psychosis looks like, and yet he can't do it because it's his own kid.
Yeah, but and think of it though also is like what by their position as sort of social scientists, criminologists, right? Their job is not to account for these crimes in terms of personal responsibility.
Yes.
It's ironic. They want to hold people responsible, but they have to actually bracket personal responsibility and look for broad social causal
Yes.
patterns that predict it. Do you see that? So there's already like a dialectical irony in the very job. Like
Yes.
we want to bring justice to bear to hold these people responsible, but our very condition of holding them responsible requires us to like give a kind of explanation that might lead us to question the very notion of responsibility.
Yes.
Right. Which
Yeah.
I think is a big part of what's going on here. Okay.
Totally.
Okay. All right. Now, let's see. So lots of things are going on in this episode. I think, maybe we'll come back to the authenticity thing because I think that is in this episode. I think it's important for what we're talking about. Okay. because I think we could talk about Wendy Carr, the closeted homosexual
Hmm.
social psychologist. I think that's important in because there's a hidden, right.
Yes.
But let's maybe just go right to um the interview with Manson. Okay, right. Okay, so the way the unit works is they go around to various prisons and they interview very, very serious serial killers. Okay,
Hmm.
and they go to see Manson, and when they go to see Manson, Manson is refusing to see them because he's a prima donna.
Hmm.
Okay, because as we'll see, he too is playing Charles Manson on TV. Okay,
Yes. Yes.
right. And so they decide while they're there to chat with their old buddy Ed Kemper. Okay, now Ed Kemper is a very interesting recurring character in the series. There was such a, or is such a person as Ed Kemper. He was a serial killer who was apprehended in the 70s. Interestingly, he was not caught. He
No,
just got
turn
sick
himself
of
in.
it, turned
Yeah.
himself in, right? That's an important theme, I think. Okay. So he turns himself in. Now, uh, it's one of the really troubling things about this series is you're always in a position where the subject supposed to know is a serial killer.
Yes.
Okay. Like like Wendy and Holden and Bill, they produce no insights.
That's right.
They are simply managing or mediating among the insights that the serial killers provide for them, right? So you're already in this position where we're like, we have to go ask the serial killers, who are we? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how does our society work? Okay. This is not accidental, right? Okay, now at one point, it's interesting. So when you see Kemper for the first time this episode, we're shown that he's reading a book called The Seven Caves. Okay. Books matter in this show. I had never heard of that book before. I looked it up. It's a very influential text in archaeology about humans in the Paleolithic and the coevolution or the evolution of humans in relationship to caves. Okay. All right.
Interesting.
I'm not quite sure what to make of this. He's also pictured under a Christian cross. Interesting. Okay. Now, but while we see him, for the first time, he is dictating something that he's working on. And he
Hmm.
says, for the use of reason is to justify the obscure desires of our conduct, impulses, prejudice, and follies. End quote. Okay. That's what Kemper's saying. All right. And so the Kemper character is suggesting that reason, um, and very much like Hume telling us that reason is and ought to be the slave of the passions, right? Reason is a post hoc thing we do to justify something else, right? Like to make our inner desires acceptable, right? In some kind of commons. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that Kemper does that because he, in an earlier episode, shares his upbringing and his childhood and how
Hmm.
cruel his mother was to him,
Yeah.
to the point where eventually he unalives her and does many other grotesque things to her body. And yet that impulse later on, he's able to kind of justify in his own head of, well, she treated me this certain way, so she
Yeah.
deserved what he got, but it was an
Yeah.
impulse that happened. It was an
Yeah.
immediate outrage of anger that caused him to hurt her.
Yeah. But in this episode, we get him. He's like, he's like completely, hey, I did what I did. I'm not justifying this. He is giving he gives an entirely psychological, and by that I mean like a space of causes explanation for what he's done in this
Yes.
episode. You see what I mean? And that's how he looks at Manson. That's how he looks at the other cases I want to talk to him about. Is it's all done as if there is no agency, right?
Yes.
And the very notion of agency, right? The story we tell about it, the story we tell about why it happened, the reasons we give for it, for Kemper is just, it's post hoc, right?
Yes.
It's always trailing behind, right? These other obscure desires, right? Um, okay. And so I think that's very important, right? Because what is like one, these guys, the FBI team is in the business of throwing out the reasons that the serial killers give and instead look for the obscure desires, right?
Hmm.
Like that's what
Hmm.
they do. They unveil the obscure desires. That's what they're looking for. Okay. Um, what is now, uh, Tench doing with respect to his own kid?
Hmm.
See what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he's
trying to reason through it.
yeah, well, yeah, it's a weird tension, right? Like because they, you know what I mean? Like the kid said, you know, I did it because I wanted because I thought by putting him on the cross he would go to heaven, right?
Yes.
Okay, but yet isn't the very job of Tench to unveil that?
Yes.
And so that's not what really goes on here. There's some other
Yes,
signals
exactly.
in the plot. Do you see that? Right? It's
Yeah.
brilliant. It's absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant. You know what I mean? Okay. All right. Now, um, so when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like there's this strange, I think there's this constant dialectical reversal happening to Tench throughout this episode,
Yes.
right? On the one hand, he wants to believe his kid. On the other hand, he knows too much, right? To trust what the kid says. And there's some deeper thing going on here,
Yes.
right? Okay. All right. So finally, Manson wants to see them. Okay. What? No, but as they're leaving, Kemper, the Oracle of Wisdom, I hate to say it, right? Right. Like he's like the Tiresias of this tragic drama,
Yeah, that's
right?
right.
Okay. He says, like, about the Manson murders, he says the mayhem has already been copiously mythologized.
Yes.
And I think he's saying you're not going to get to it. You're not going to get to it. Right. And he at one point he says, like, this is hilarious. He's like, what does he say? Like, if Charlie takes a shit, like Charlie Manson takes a shit, and you haven't heard about it, he'll tell you about it.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So he's telling you that Manson is playing Charles Manson now.
Yes.
Like you're not going to go in there and talk to Charles Manson and get the demythologized truth. Right.
Exactly.
Do you see that? Like that's not available. And why would you trust his reasons?
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
He's a character.
He's playing a character, right? No less than Tim McVeigh, right? Okay. Okay. Now, and so I know I put in my notes here. He's Kemper offers no justification, right? And at one point they get Kemper talking about another case, right? And Kemper starts telling him, look, this guy lives in a fantasy world, and he actually lives as a quote. He says, he lives in an overwhelming fantasy life, right? Uh, his dreams consume him until the real world cannot compare. Okay. And then Bill says, how do we catch a fantasy? Right. Because okay. And Ed replies, you can't catch the fantasy, right? You
Yeah.
can't.
Well, he
You
said,
can't.
didn't he say he followed that up with like these people have jobs, they have families, they have relationship, they're out in the normal. And he said the only ones that you guys are hearing from are the ones that you caught,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, or the
Exactly.
ones that the myths are out there, right? He mentions
Yeah.
a couple of other serial killers about, oh, is it about this guy or this guy? And he's like, those are just the ones you've caught.
Yeah.
So
And I think even deeper is like, okay, if what we're talking about here is like like we've got a phantasmagoric vision of Charlie Manson now, and they're talking about the BTK killer here, right? And BTK, a little close to home for us. Uh, but then the killers themselves have a phantasmagoric view of themselves, right? All these see what I mean? Then it seems like it's fantasy all around, and we don't have access to the real.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? We don't have access to the real. Okay, right. And I think that's what the episode is trying to get us to here, right? Right. Okay. So now we meet Manson. Okay. Um, and gosh, man, there's so many nuggets here on this, right? But like the I think the big thing is with our guy Charlie is he keeps saying, I didn't make them do anything, right? All I did was take your children, Bill, and he's always addressing Bill Tench, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just took your children and directed them towards what they wanted.
Yes.
Do you
Which
see
hits
that?
home for Bill because of what he's dealing with his own kid.
Exactly. You can see that, right? Okay, so this is where I think like you get the central problem of the episode, right? Is on the one hand, Bill in some ways like wants to like get his kid off the hook and say that this is somehow a product of environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the kid's decision. Okay, good, and it's standard for him, right? But by doing that, he has to indict himself.
Mm-hmm.
You see what
Because
I
he was
mean?
he was the environment.
He was in the environment.
Yeah.
And he hates Manson. Like Manson, like he's the FBI agent. He's like the staid representative of American power, right? And Manson is supposedly the representative of the counterculture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and so it's like his absolute apotheosis, and he has to take the same imaginary position as Manson if he's going to not justify, but exculpate his son.
Yes.
You see that? So you have this incredible dialectical reversal there, right?
Yes.
That we're seeing before our eyes. Do you see that? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay. And once again, I hate to like make Manson some kind of oracle of wisdom here.
The show does it, so
The
it is
show
what it
doesn't. Yeah, one me. All right, okay.
is.
And then Manson goes after Tench, and he actually says, let me find this. There's a great quote here. Sorry.
Is it the anger
Yeah,
that you're feeling, Agent Tench?
yeah, go with that.
Yeah. So he says, "This anger that you're feeling, Agent Tench, is just the anger that you have got for you. Find someone else to put yourself on. I'm tired of being your goat. I'm tired of
Yeah.
being your reflection."
The reflection, like there's your dialectical relationship there, right? You know what I mean? Like you think it's me, it's you.
Yes.
You're the subject here. You're the
Yeah.
subject, right? Exactly. Okay, where I was going to go to the next point was I found it. The Manson says, "You don't look free to me. You look like a composite of what someone told you you are. You live for other people's opinions. You got pain on your face, and you wonder if you look okay." End quote. Right? You see that? And so what he's saying, like, look, he's like saying, you are playing out the role of the good father, of the good American, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a pretend game.
Mm-hmm.
And deep down, your kids kill people too, man.
Yep.
Like, and there's that analogy. Like, both Manson and Tench are fathers of adopted children.
Yes.
Okay, right? They're both fathers of adopted children, and both their kids killed or involved in killing. It's crazy. Yeah, okay. And Manson's diagnosing Tench to say, no, these are your kids who did this, and where did that come from, right?
The
And
environment,
and so
the narrative environment that you raising them in.
yeah, and if you say, you can't just say, oh, they're evil, they did it, it's their fault. Well, okay, but so then you're like you're abandoning your own children. Then so you have to go to this sort of like there's something rotten in the world that they're inheriting from us.
Yes.
Do
Yes.
you see that? Okay,
So
it's like checkmate. You see what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
So later on, he says, this is Manson again. He says, "I've been in your cell since I was 8 years old. I don't even have a name. I'm B33920. A bell rings, I get up. I go out. A bell rings, I do whatever the bells tells me. I'm Pavlov's dog. I'm anything you want
Yes.
me to be." This is the best part. He says, "But what you want is a fiend, because that is what you are."
Yeah, exactly. Boom, there it is. Like you can just see like the dialectical richness of what's going on here, right? Is like the substance is the subject, man. Like you're
Yes.
in this. You cannot like you are a part of this. This is
Yes.
you, right? Like look at Chuck Manson and see yourself in the mirror. That's what he's done here, right?
Totally. Totally.
And like the filmmakers are not saying because we've all done something equally as bad as Manson, but the point is like he's saying we are all spawning murderous children.
Yes.
Because they go out of the way to like point out in the episode, these kids are all the products of the American middle class, man. Like they all come from like good white Christian homes, all this stuff, right? Like some of them did all the right things. Like Tex was a super athlete in high school, all that stuff, right? Good American kids, and they did this, right?
Yes.
You see that?
Yep.
Okay.
It reminded me of Scarface, whenever there's that great dinner scene when he and his wife get in a big fight, and he's like, "What are you looking at? You're looking at the bad guy. You need a bad guy, though, because you need somebody to point a finger at." It's like, but what he's doing is basically saying, you are all bad in your own way. I'm just
Yeah.
doing it in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and so then we cut to they interview Tex, who was one of the members of the family, who did most of the actual dirty
The real
work.
bad stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the real bad stuff. And he's like this big, young, athletic guy. So he's the one wielding the butcher knife, right?
He's from not far from where I'm originally from.
Really, actually,
Yeah.
yeah. Any plaques hanging up down? Okay, Tex is converted to evangelical Christianity, right? And but he does not have a coherent story to tell, I think, right? Like on the one hand, he's like, Charlie kind of made us do this. It was his idea, et cetera, et cetera. But then when Holden asks him point blank, if it weren't for Charlie, would you have killed? He gives you a very ambiguous answer. He says, well, I know I had anger in my heart. Cause he stabbed somebody like 52 times, right? Like that's pretty that's rough, right? Like
Yeah.
think of how long it takes to stab someone
Oh my
52 times.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know you're on a lot of drugs, but there had to be some inner rage there, right? For that to happen. And so it's interesting. He takes responsibility, but he still can't help but to narrativize it in some
Hmm.
way that justifies it to put it on Charlie.
Yes.
Do you see that? We don't get this like complete story,
Hmm.
right? From him.
Hmm.
It's very unclear. Do you see that?
Yeah. He's kind of
And when
scapegoating Charlie.
Yeah, okay, and also another thing too, I think it's important to note before we see Tex, there's this weird thing that Charlie does. Well, it's Charlie, right? He he asks Holden if he can have his sunglasses, and Holden's a little starstruck, and he lets Charlie have his sunglasses. And then as they're leaving the prison, one of the guards flags them down, gives him his glasses back because Manson told everybody he stole them, right?
Hmm.
Why? Because he's playing Charlie Manson on TV. Like he too is putting out a story. Do you see that? Like, you know what I mean? Like like Tim McVeigh was saying earlier, he's playing the story game, right?
Yes.
So now there's a question: does Charles Manson himself have any real direct, unmediated access to what happened here?
Yes.
He does not seem
Yeah,
to.
and it's interesting too the conversation between him and Bill Tench, because at that point, as you mentioned, like he becomes the FBI agent again, and his ideas of morally right or wrong are so clear in his own head. Of like, look, you did this, you deserve justice for it, and Charlie is providing kind of a much more, because he just says, look, man, it is what it is. Like
Yeah,
what
is
what
yeah,
is love is what it is. He keeps calling
yeah,
it love too.
yeah,
So you have this kind of like staunch, moral code versus this, like, I don't want to even say nuanced. It's kind of more confused about what right and wrong is, and
yeah,
not being willing to
yeah.
justify one way or the other.
Because I think this is partly like where Manson is confused, because he's like what is he's trying to say that there's like some access to reality that's unmediated by any story whatsoever, right?
Yes,
But I think his whole point is like there is no such access.
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like our access to reality is mediated,
Yes,
right? You see that, and and he too mediates. He too is putting on a show. Do you see that? Like if what is, then you don't need to claim to your prison buddies that you stole Holden sunglasses when you didn't.
exactly.
You see what I mean? Like he tried to pull it into some larger narrative, right? Do you see that? Um, there is no certainty of absolute immediacy, right?
Exactly.
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 Okay. And I know we're kind of like mixing some themes here. On the one hand, I think you have this sort of like constant like counter indictment of Tench, right?
Hmm.
And that he has to fall into out of his commitment to his own kid is going to force him to see himself as the very subject that he's rejecting, right?
Yes.
Okay. But also I think there's then this like authenticity play here too, right? And we see this in earlier in the episode, Wendy Carr is with her lover who has left her family, right, to go on because she just that's not who I really am, right?
Hmm.
Like that
Hmm.
she's got this like commitment to a kind of personal authenticity, and she just can't pretend to be a family woman anymore, and so she's left her family. And in the moment, like Wendy has this admiration for her, right?
Hmm.
This really grippy admiration. Like, I think what you've done is really wonderful, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Later in later episodes, we're going to be forced to see the deep consequences of this for her son and former husband. Okay. All right. And eventually Wendy will actually reject this. Okay. But there's like this, but I see the girlfriend and Manson now both saying what is his,
Yes.
right? I'm just absolutely what I am. And I'm not playing a part on TV, but in fact, they both are, right?
Yes.
You see that? And this very idea that you can get out of playing a part is bad faith, right?
Yes.
That's what Sartre's bad faith is. right? Is this so like Charlie, despite his insights into Tench's like dialectical reliance on him, he himself though is confused and living in bad faith, as is Wendy's girlfriend. Right. Right. And I'm not saying that as like a judgment of the homosexual nature of the relationship. That's not the point, right? The point is though that there's just to say I'm doing this utterly authentically because is that's a lie. That's bad faith.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
It's
Right.
also a break of prior commitments that now are part of who you are. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Yeah. To say that somehow you can just start it over. That's because is right. Well, you can't shake the narrative.
can't do
Right.
that. Yeah.
You can't do it. Yeah. And so then it's interesting. So the episode ends where we're at this like just god awful cocktail party. Uh, at the was it the assistant director's home where they need to butter up all these like higher ups in the FBI.
Money
It, yeah, to
or
get the
funding
money
at least.
to
Yeah.
fund it to get their boss promoted. Right, that's how it usually goes. Right, and so first of all, it's sexually creepy. Some guy is like really really trying to strong arm Wendy into bed. Right,
Hmm.
that's not the way she swings, dude. Okay, and even if she did, it wouldn't matter. You're being a jerk, right? You know what I mean? Okay, but also this I think the important point is like Tench goes in there and he plays the part of the FBI good old boy, like Oscar level performance, right? You see that? And then he and Wendy have a conversation outside where he outs himself as having a son who is involved in the very kind of crime that they investigate.
Yes.
You see that? And so, like, he's just admitting my persona that I project is a sham.
Yes.
It's an utter sham. Like this is in my house too.
Yes.
Right.
But I find it
This is
interesting too that the guy that is trying to get close to Wendy, it's an insight into like these guys are like the ones that we consider the arbiters of justice, yet they're just as much perverted as the ones that we're chasing. It's
yeah.
just a different kind of perversion.
And as an aside too, I think it shows just like how god awful it must have been to be a woman
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Jeez.
in those kinds of environments in that era, and maybe still now. I don't doubt that there's still problems, right? But it was like I'm sure that was just a matter of course in those days, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, but I agree with you. Like this is supposedly the place of justice. And look, like this guy actually says I'm the liaison of justice, right? He's the liaison to the Justice Department for this program. And what's he doing? He's trying to strong arm a woman to bed, right? So like the duplicity, the inauthenticity is there, right? And think of it like Tench and Wendy are in the parking lot having a smoke, and like Tench tells her, "Hey, guess what? I just I just played the role, but you know what? This sickness is in my own home, right?"
Hmm.
And then she doesn't like mention her homosexuality, right? But that too would not wash in that room. You see what I mean? In 1978, okay, wherever it is, right? And so they're both having to live in deep inauthenticity by the projections that they're making, right? But there's kind of an admission uh, of this on Tench's part now. And so maybe he's the only one now who's achieved a kind of authenticity.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. He realized, well, and I think too that, and we talk about this all the time, the idea of the big other, right? That we are each other's big other most
Yeah.
oftentimes. Like we
Yeah.
set up these narratives
Yeah.
to be that way. Whenever you want to be like authentic or whatever, you're pushing back against the big other, but that's exactly what the big other wants.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. 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 No, because like, yeah, look, like the guy who's like, hey, I'm gonna do my thing and like leave my husband and kid, right? Because I'm better than the big other. That's Zizek's idiot, right? And guess what? Like she's just gonna fall back into some pattern of conformity, right? Which is actually shown to be the case in the show later on, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah, right. You see that, right?
Totally.
And so I think you can see like how kind of like all this sort of connects is like this idea that like there's an is that we can have access to. Um, it, at this point, like things are too fraught. There's too many narratives about ourselves and what goes on available, right?
Hmm.
For us to actually say one of these gets it just right in some way that we can be fully comfortable, right? It doesn't mean like we can't hold on to them, right? But to say just this is me unquestionably, and to say that there's just no room for questioning, I think the show is saying that's not available, right? That's not available, right? And it's maniacal. It's like it's Manson's view after all, right? Like you know what I mean? Like the big advocate of authenticity is Manson, right? You see what I mean? Right. And whereas Kemper is like rejecting the very notion of authenticity,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Man,
Right.
great
And
show.
I think Tench is coming to this position where he's like, yes, Ed, you're right. There's no authenticity. And yet there does seem to be good and evil, right?
Yes.
And I need to struggle. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yep. Yeah, and Holden's an interesting character too. He doesn't have as much of a role in this one, but in this episode in particular. But in the first season, his understanding of the perverse and a lot of the switches that happen with him
Yes.
personally and his own personal
Yeah.
relationships as well. It's such an interesting kind of like insight into the psyche and what we consider perverse.
Yeah. I see season one of Mindhunters is that's the Freudian season.
Yep.
And
Yep.
like
Absolutely.
literally, like you get a lot of reference to Goffman, but you have a lot of reference to Freud in that one.
Totally.
Okay. And poor Holden, man, he is he he catches the brunt of that. Okay.
Yes.
And I see season two is the existentialist season,
Nice. Yep.
right? And like and now we're like, I mean, bad faith in is a background theme, with the Goffman references in the first
Hmm.
season. But in the second season, I think it comes to the fore, like especially in this episode, right? It's the existentialist season. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting
Yeah.
too because the producers of the show were brilliant in not actually showing a lot of the murders and all the other stuff that was going on, because then the oracles that show up, you have a little bit of sympathy for them,
Yeah.
right? Because you didn't actually see
Maybe
it
it's a little
happen.
manipulative, but yeah,
It
right.
is it's
Yeah.
very manipulative, totally. Because I don't want to have sympathy for the devil, right? Like that's not what I want to do. But if you're going to have oracles showing up with this kind of ideas or philosophy or whatever you want to call it, you have to have some kind of empathy for the person.
Yeah. I mean,
If you just
think
saw
of
them
it.
as monsters, you wouldn't care.
Yeah. And think of it too. I mean, I think this is like one of the points of this episode is essentially, Wendy and Holden and Bill are trying to understand our society, right?
Yes.
They're trying to understand our society because they want to understand what sorts of children our society spawns, right?
Yes.
Okay. And we are at a point where we have to go ask Ed Kemper to explain ourselves to ourselves, right? Do you see that?
Yeah.
Right. And so, like it or not, there is something with us that's producing people that do this. And it would seem now Tiresias is going to be Ed Kemper, right?
Yeah. Yeah, which is a little creepy when you think about what we talked about at the very beginning of this episode and other powers that be that are involved in some of this stuff. That's a
Oh yeah, like yeah,
you know, yeah, like if they're producing this stuff, because I mean, especially there in the 60s and 70s, you had a long string of this kind of stuff going on all over the country.
yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, environments might create this, but there might also be some agency on some parts
I mean,
producing for this as well.
if if you read Tom O'Neill's book, right, it seems
Pretty
like
clear.
all you need to do is put meth and acid together uh, in a sustained program, and you'll get this, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, that seemed to be the cocktail that Charlie was pushing to the youngsters at the ranch, right? It was like, wasn't it that it was like speed and acid, steady diet of that for 12 months, and
So the brain to do a lot of
you too can be a member of the family, right? You know what I mean?
exactly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is like that is not the stuff of just like paranoid conspiracy theories. Like you had things like, was it the Church Commission in the 70s where like, you know, a lot, like it was just brought out in Congress that MKUltra did happen.
Yeah,
Right.
totally nuts.
Um, you know, uh Errol Morris has a couple of good documentaries on this, right? Well, actually,
There you go.
one of them is a very good documentary on it, and then the one he actually does on chaos, I thought was like a little disappointing, but it's still,
I haven't seen it.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, like the the church committee, drew a lot of the stuff out, right? I mean, most of the documents were destroyed, but there was enough that it's clear there was such a program, right? And there were ops run, right? So to say that narrative can be dismissed, I think is premature, right? and I'm not, and once again, using the Manson example, I'm not saying the organized crime one is the right one. I'm not saying, the hippie cult one is the right one. I'm not saying that the MKUltra one is the right one. I'm saying, we don't know, and I think the episode is suggesting Charlie Manson doesn't know.
Yeah. We don't have to access to what is, man.
We don't have access to what is, right? We have access to what is as it's mediated through the story that we're placed in, right? And that's not to say like we're living in a simulation, there's no real world, because like, you know, real events happen. Like there were dead people that resulted from this, right? Do you see what I mean? But what is the meaning of that event? What was it? Right. Like, well, we're gonna have competing stories now. Yeah. Right.
Awesome.
Awesome. Right. But
Great
maybe
episode.
our weirdest episode yet. Right.
Well, you mix in Kemper with Charles Manson, you're gonna get kind of weird.
Yeah,
So
look, man, we did it all, man. We did Manson, we did Tim McVeigh, right? Right.
yep. Cool. Well, yeah. All our viewers and listeners, go watch that episode if you have Netflix. But I definitely would suggest watching the whole show because it builds on itself for sure. But
Yeah.
so we'll see if
And
season 3 ever comes out. They're still talking about it, but we'll see.
I think let's do sometime soon, let's do the perversion episode
Nice.
from season 1, right? That'd be a good way for us to do Freud's 3 essays.
No. Oh, nice. Yeah. Use it as a
Yeah.
content. Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be a good object lesson for it, as it were, right? So cool. But hey, in the meantime, don't be afraid with the holidays coming to help us out on Patreon. Right, right. Uh, uh, Jared has a considerable brood of people to play Santa for. so, let's help out St. Nicholas here, right?
There you go. Exactly.
But if you can't do that, because I know it's the holidays for you all too, like, subscribe, send an episode to a friend. The 5-star reviews are good, right? Doesn't that help a
Those
lot?
are awesome. Yep.
Yeah,
They help the
comments,
algorithm.
all that stuff, right?
Absolutely.
And for the record, we are not coming out pro Manson. Please listen carefully.
Not at all.
Before.
No, the man was a monster.
That
Absolutely.
was a monster. We're not, yeah, no, we're not, nor are we coming out pro Ed Kemper or anything like that, right? But it is important that now we have to look to them for insights into us.
That is interesting.
It is interesting. All right.
Well, we have to ask
All right,
Oedipus, right? So
exactly. Yeah. No, like, once again, I think we've just done the same episode again.
yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Awesome. Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
brother.